Well, welcome to Untold, a podcast about Utah's boldest entrepreneurs and business leaders. Their behind the scenes battles, breakthroughs, and what the heck were we thinking moments. These are the stories you'll wish you'd heard sooner about the businesses you might not have known were right next door. With me today is Dain Hodson, President and COO of BGZ Brands. Welcome, Dain.
Hey, thank you, John. Great to be here.
Thanks. Looking forward to our chat. And I love your background with the posters. I
Absolutely.
want to ask you more about that. But first, maybe introduce us to BGZ Brands. So what is the brand family? What do you do? What products do you make? Tell us about what you do.
Great. Yeah, we started back in 2002, in October of 2002, and we started the company really at the time we had three different products that we were selling. We had the product line that was screen guards, which is, we'll get to more on that in just a second. And then we were actually doing some reselling of a hat company called Z Hats. And then we had a design firm. And as things just started playing out over the last 23 years, screen guards rose to the top. And since that point, we've morphed into some other things that we've done in the business. And so our main brands are BodyGuardz, Lander, and Moxyo. And BodyGuardz is a mobile device protection product line with screen protectors cases primarily in that line. Lander is more our outdoor tech, and we have carry solutions there. And then our Moxyo line is more everyday type accessories that you'd see with MagSafe wallets to car chargers and some other things. And so, but our two primary brands right now really sit with the BodyGuardz and Lander brands.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely seen your products. I had a couple of cases, I think, phone cases that were that. The phone cases last longer than the phones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we build them tough, so they're made to take a licking, and so yeah, we've had a great success with our cases over the years. So
Cool.
yeah.
Well, so you said it started in 2002. You've been with the company 20 years or so, so pretty,
Yep.
on kind of ground level, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's the typical business that you hear. I love talking to entrepreneurs because how many of them started in the basement. And
Yeah.
we actually started this business in the basement of the founders, Kirk and April Feller, and I've been friends with them since I was 16, and so I'm a little bit older than that, so it's been quite a while. But yeah, started the business in their basement, and we'd sell during the day, and we actually used one of their daughter's rooms for our sales room while she was at school, and we'd take the orders and then build product out in the garage and get ready to ship it out. And yeah, so we were direct to consumer, a lot of what we did back in the early days, and then started acquiring retailers. And one of our big first successes was with a company called Game Crazy, which was Hollywood Video's gaming division. And we were selling product for the Sony PSP and Nintendo DS. And that was our first big retail play, and we were about 750 stores. And so it really, that was a really big launching pad for us back at the time during those days in retail.
Back when there was brick and mortar for movie rentals and
Yeah, exactly.
DVDs.
VHS and data going on. Yeah, that's exactly right. So
Yeah, man. I mean, it feels like sometimes that's 30 years ago, but it really wasn't that long ago. The
yeah.
things.
That whole world's changed with the Blockbuster and Hollywood videos to now you don't leave the house. You just get it all
Mm.
streaming. So very different
So,
world.
I mean, you started, started in the basement, like you said. So I'm sure significant ups and downs. So, as you know, I'd love for you to reflect on your journey and then some of the other entrepreneurs you've talked to. What have you seen that helps people survive the entrepreneurial ups and downs?
That's a great question. When we started the business, one of the things that Kirk specifically, when we started, he and I had worked in three companies previous to that, one of his own companies and then a couple other startups that were in the tech world. And I think one of the things that really set it in motion was the culture. Kirk set, we wanted to change what we had seen in different entrepreneurial ventures that we'd been involved in, and really just I don't want to say went anti on the establishment of entrepreneurs because everybody, an entrepreneur has to fight. It's always a fight with something, whether it's your suppliers, your customers, funding, doesn't matter. Everybody goes through something where they're having to figure out how to gut it up and get through it. And when we started the company, we bootstrapped the company. And so that was one of the big things, is that we didn't want to get funding. We wanted to figure out how to do it ourselves. And so from a growth standpoint, it probably went slower than most people would like to see.
Yeah.
But to this day, we don't owe anybody any money. It's our company. And so that was one of the things that I would say, when I look back, just some of the struggles financially of just, okay, how we, living really from, time we set a purchase order in till the time we get an order from a customer, and how fast we have to turn it to cash and be able to just, the cash flow is king. They always say cash is king, but in a small business, cash flow is king, of being able to pay suppliers and rent and all the other things you got to do. And so, a lot of bootstrapping in the early days, but some of the favorite days of just figuring out how to make things work. Because there's not real, I wish that you could take an instruction manual and say, this is how you do it. But every business, whether you're a product or service, has a different heartbeat and how you have to run things. And so, to me, it was that was part of the fun, is trying to figure that out. And that's really even the position I have in the company was based around, having a need and trying to figure out how to fill it. Entrepreneurs are notorious for wearing every hat in the company. We had the blessing in this company of having myself, Kirk, April, and my brother at the time was on sales. And April was phenomenal at the finance side, and Kirk was really on the marketing side and being the CEO of the company. Mark was over sales, and defaulted to me when something had to be shipped. It was like we looked at each other and said, "Okay, how do we do it?" And then I had the opportunity to go figure out how to do it. And so a lot of the entrepreneurial world is learn on the job.
Mhm.
It's you have to just go through and figure out how to do things, and that's been a huge blessing in my career, to be able to go out and figure it out. But still having mentors and others that say, "Hey, why don't you try this? Here's a guy I know."
Yeah.
And so I think
And find
networking.
help,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
you got to figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah. So networking is another big deal, and there's very few entrepreneurs I've ever talked to that don't have war wounds of something, but they've learned how to overcome them, and they find success in doing what they're doing.
Mhm. So, you mentioned bootstrapping and how that might have, actually inhibited growth early on.
Yep.
I'm curious. So, what do you think was the upside? So, what do you think that having that kind of constraint, how did it make you better? How did it help you get to where you're at today?
Every decision we made was our decision to make. That we didn't have somebody saying, "Well, it's my money, you're going to do it this way." And so it allowed us to be we could control our destiny. And I mean, even, we were talking about the posters behind my head. These are all original Disney art from when Disneyland opened up. And one of the big parts of our culture has been around is the Disney way and Imagineering and other things that, just how Walt Disney did things, and just kind of his mindset around how he did things. And when you go through his story, talking about an entrepreneur that just did not give up. And, he went through about every battle I think you could possibly go through. Um, but anyway, when I look back on what we were able to do, Kirk very early on in the company said, part of what we're going to do is we're going to go to Disneyland as a company.
Hmm.
And, we started off our very first trip in 2006, I believe was the first time we went. And, there were probably, I don't know, Kirk's family, my family, and brother. And anyway, we all went down to Disneyland. What it did is it took us out of our day-to-day environment and looked at a much bigger picture of what we'd be able to do as a company. Sometimes in the market that we live in, we get pretty isolated and kind of in a bubble of how things should go. But you go out in the big world, and Disneyland is a place where you see a lot of things. And so, you go down there and just see the opportunity that's in front of you, and see things in a different light. And I think that was a big opportunity for us to be able to see things in a different way, but be able to control that destiny, where we didn't have
Hmm.
to report to somebody. I mean, we reported to ourselves, of course. We
Yeah.
all held each other accountable for what we did, but it allowed us to do things in the way we wanted to do it.
So, yeah, I'm curious. What other ways, was like these trips and the culture that you were trying to put in place, and what other ways do you think that helped you to be successful and for the brand to grow?
Yeah. I think what it did also is, I talked about a little bit about the accountability. When you bring everybody's family together, all their families together, all of a sudden you're looking at it and it's not just us sitting around a table at work talking about things. You're actually affecting the families that, are being supported by the company. And so what it did is I believe it put a drive in us that, hey, it's much bigger than just the four of us sitting around a table talking about what we're going to do today. It's how's it going to affect our families. And so I think it put a governing influence on us on how we wanted to run the company and what, how intently we were to be successful in what we were doing. We didn't really have a fail safe, or a parachute off of it. We figured, we're jumping in both feet. Let's go and let's do this, and that's what we did. So it provided a lot of drive and a lot of excitement in the company.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Um, you mentioned earlier that every entrepreneur has battle wounds, scars.
Yep.
Tell me about a mistake or a failure or a big issue that came up in your journey that turned out to be a great teacher for you, something that you still, right, still comes up for you today.
Yeah, we've had a few different things that we've gone through in the past, whether it be on acquisition of another product line or, and I'd probably say those are probably some of the areas that I'd look back on. And at the time it seemed right. It was like, let's go, let's do this. It's a new revenue source for us or a new exciting product line. But sometimes as we brought those product lines in, they may not have been true to what we were doing.
Mm,
Um, and so I think sometimes if you take your eye off the goal, that sometimes, and what your core competency is, sometimes it takes you away from what you can do and what you should be doing. I'm not saying that innovation should be stifled by any means. That's not where I'm going with this. It's really, as we looked at some of these lines that were really not in our wheelhouse, and we tried to force them in. It not only caused a problem from us being able to find the right channels to sell the product in, but how do we even manufacture the product? What regulations are around that product that we may not be aware of? Just a lot of things that, we're good at what we do, and sometimes when we ventured off of that, sometimes we landed in places that we just weren't ready for. I guess is probably the best way to say it. And so, um, and we've just had different product lines that I think just weren't true to what we do.
So what's from that experience, like what's one question you ask now that you wish you would have asked before?
Yeah, it's funny right now. We're kind of in another time in our business where we're looking at changing, not the direction. We're still, staying true to the product lines, but is this something that we can do where I think a lot of it has to do with, do we have that talent in-house? Sometimes you look at a new product line or a new opportunity and go, okay, we're gonna have to hire a bunch of people in order to do that, and let's bring them in. Well, what that does is, what, from experience we've had, is that it also sometimes that changes your culture. And if your culture changes, you have a lot of things that you got to fix, and you got to fix them quick. And sometimes they don't fix right. And so to me, it's just, as we're looking at this change that we're going through right now, we're looking at our team and saying, do we have the expertise in house, or can we potentially contract that expertise if we need to, not necessarily bring in a full new crew of people in order to try to figure something out. It's really for us of going, look at our talent base, what do we have? And really, I think one of the great things that provides the company is sometimes you don't know the talents that some people have, and what this will do. And we're already seeing it. Some of the ideas of product innovation or processes or other things are coming out from people that you're like, wow, I didn't know that was in there. And it just brings out the best in people when you provide them with opportunities to expand on what they do. And yeah, it's just pretty amazing to see just some of the things that are coming up in people's minds as we bring this new ideation out, and they want to get involved. And it provides excitement not only for us as a management team, but even as the team as a whole is looking at it and going, oh, I can see what I can do to help there. And it's fun to watch.
Wow, that's cool. That's
Yeah.
cool. So do you think about your career arc, from the garage startup, into or the basement startup to where you guys are today?
Mhm.
I like to look at your leadership. So how would you consider that your leadership style has changed in the 20 years you've been with BGZ?
Yeah, that's it's been fun to see because when we started the company, it was a lot of us being friends. We grew up in California. I grew up in the Bay Area, and Kirk and April, like I said, I've known them since I was 16, so I've known them for a long time. And my brother and just others that have been involved in the company, we all got together as a bunch of friends, and we could rely on each other. And as we brought new people in, that people that we haven't known in the past, we may not have a relationship with them, but as we've interviewed them and just seen how they've come into the company, what that allows, the leadership of the company to do is go, okay, we have to look at this differently. Yeah, I don't have a 20-year relationship with some of these people. They're coming in brand new, and so how do we integrate them into the company? And I'll say, and it's like every entrepreneur or anybody who hires people, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and finding that out sooner than later, it benefits both the company and the person. Because if it's not a good fit, it really makes it tough on both parties to, how to manage people. Their happiness isn't there. They may not be happy being in that position. And we, not that we welcome having to make the change again, but at the same time, if it's for the best for both of us, then we're willing to make that change. And I think early on, we just gutted it through because we're all friends, and we'd have to eat Sunday dinner with each other at some point. But when you look at other employees, we want to bring them in, and when you have a good fit in your company with an employee, it's gold. I mean, it's amazing, and I would say the team we have right now is just absolutely wonderful to work with, and they're yeah, it really makes the business hum when you have everybody singing the same tune.
Mm. Yeah, it sounds like that kind of ties directly into what you were talking about earlier about maybe expanding and looking for talent in-house that is a cultural fit
Yep,
versus rolling the dice, right? Because
yep,
no matter how you interview, right, at some point some percentage don't make it.
right.
They don't fit. So
Yep. Yep. Yeah, that's exactly. And we've seen that, and we've you can do a lot of things in interviews, but some things you just don't find out. And same with anybody who comes in as an employee. They come in and they're going, well, what I thought I was getting into is not what I've gotten into, and so again, finding that if there isn't a fit there, then let's figure out how to make this right, and whether they're leaving for another position or whatever it might be. But yeah, we've had that in the past, and those are tough decisions because we never want to bring somebody in and figure, well, we're only going to have you here for a few months and turn it right back around and go find something else. But again, at certain times it's for the best of both.
yeah. And how are you guys working? Are you kind of a in the office sort of company? Are you hybrid, remote? Like, tell me a
All
little bit about how the company is put together.
Yeah, all of the above. We've, of course, like everyone, COVID wreaked havoc, and I still remember the night that that we Rudy Gobert came out and talked about having COVID or whatever happened, and we, as it started to hit, we had an emergency exec meeting and saying, okay, what are we going to do? Are we shutting down the company? Is everybody work from home? And we very early on, made the investment in laptops.
Right.
Nobody has desktops, so you can be remote if you need to, and that really benefited us as a company of being able to continue the momentum without missing a beat. Yes, is it hard to not have everybody together? Sure, but what it did allow us to do, which has been part of our culture very early on, Kirk, I remember early on, he said, if you have an event with your son or daughter and it's at 3 o'clock, you better be at that event because it comes around once in a lifetime. You can't miss those events. Having said that, at the same time, you still need to get your job done. So if you need to leave at 3 to go watch the dance recital, the soccer game, whatever it is, go to it. But just make sure you get your job done. And again, if you have the right people on your team, you don't worry about it. You just they go and do. And so I think that it played well into what work from home looked like. With having everybody go and having to go remote for the first little bit, and then bringing everybody back. We're pretty, I don't want to say liberal. That sounds a little bit, too much, but we would like to have everybody in the office, of course, as much as we can, because there's just a cohesion that takes place when you're together. But also with the understanding we have remote employees that are out in the field that are selling, or engineers, or whoever it might be. And so we can still
Mhm.
get the job done. But yeah, you got to have the right people in order to do that.
Yeah, I'm hearing, behind that a lot of trust and empowerment, that
Absolutely.
so people have to be able to thrive in that, right? And
Yeah,
be
exactly.
self-directed to be able to do that.
Yep. Yep. That's 100%. The trust is a big deal. So
Mm.
for sure. And that's, yeah, again, we're blessed right now with some really great people and being able to do that.
Mm. Well, I'm curious for you personally, as you have had the ups and downs and challenges of being an entrepreneur. How do you deal with the stress? Like, what's your outlet, or what do you do?
Yeah, it's interesting because, I got my degree in health promotion. And so the whole degree was based around really corporate wellness. And going through that whole discipline was really around, of course, nutrition and exercise. And exercise has been key for our company for a long time. We've had, fitness challenges. We do all these different things that we try to, get people involved. We go on during the summer. We go on company hikes. But really, just for me, probably my biggest outlet is definitely exercise, and in whatever form that is. It could be running, swimming, whatever. It doesn't matter. Lifting, and all the things. It just I usually start that in the morning, because I've learned that if I do it in the morning, whatever steam is built up, it relieves that steam for the time being, and then when I get to work, I can think a lot more clearly. And working out at night doesn't help. One of the things that we have is a lot of our manufacturing is overseas, and
Yeah,
so with that, when we start, when our day ends at 5, it starts up in China or Vietnam at 6. And so then we start seeing, all the questions coming from our factories, and shipping, and whatever it might be, that those issues arise, and so you got to take care of those. And so I think that you've just got to make it a priority in order to find that outlet. I know some people's outlet is music. It could be, being, like I said, exercise, whatever it might be, whatever your outlet is, find that outlet, because it's a critically important part of being able to maintain. Because the stress is always there. I wish you could say you could walk out the door and turn it off, but it doesn't happen. It's omnipresent and ever present, and it's you just got to learn how to be able to handle it and be able to de-stress when the time comes.
that's great. Um, yeah, so I'm curious. You pointed a couple of different times toward the company culture. I, is there? Tell me about a routine or something that you do that you think is helps to support that culture as the president COO.
Yeah. It's been fun because like I said, I've been around since we started it, and so we've been able to create a culture around that. And we have every Tuesday morning we have just a company huddle, just a quick huddle of just quick hits of what's going on in the company, because everybody's working on what they do. Whether the finance team, the ops team, sales team, marketing team, e-com, whoever, they all are living in their world. And yes, we're all interconnected, and we're not a you know thousands of employees. I mean, we got about 37 right now, but still, when you're in your world, you're somewhat siloed. And so for us to come together and on a weekly basis to be able to just talk about what's happening in the company, so everybody has a good vision of where we're going, I think that's been a big key for us. And we've implemented that over the last few years of just having that weekly meeting, just to make sure everybody's understanding what's happening in the company and the highs and the lows. I mean, it's not always everything's peachy. Sometimes we talk about things that are, this is one of the challenges. And what we do is we have a sprint
Hmm.
where we talk about a sprint that week of like, okay, this is something that's coming up, and we're going to need to, sometimes it's an all hands on deck. Other times it's certain departments that are involved, but it's something that allows the company to come together and work on one specific, task that needs to be taken care of in order to make sure everything's good. So, I'd say that. we're pretty open about what we have. We have a quarterly meeting that we go through, and it's all departments are involved, and they just go through pretty much a quarter in review. So the quarterly review takes place, and we'll go through the financials, what's happening with product innovation, what's happening on the marketing side, if there's anything operational or financial that we need to talk about, we talk about it there. And like I said, we've been pretty open with our employees, and I've heard a lot of the companies, well, companies I was with previous to this, unless they were publicly traded, you did not know what was going on. You just hoped that everything was going well, and we're pretty open with what we've done because that's how we grew up in the company. Is we'd sit around a table and go, okay, guys, this is what we got to do in order to make it. So let's figure it out. So yeah, I'd say those are probably two of the biggest things. And of course, then just activities. We'll have luncheons usually like I said earlier, we had an employee lunch where we all got together and just went out together and went to eat and we'll have potlucks and do other things like that and the company trips. And so anyway, there's a lot of different things you can do to just make sure that people are bought in. And one of the big things too is I think seeing people outside of the work environment
Yeah.
is it's really important to understand who they are past what they've got to do, whatever their role is in the company, but they're also moms and dads and brothers and sisters and whatever they might be. They've got a lot more to life than just what's in these four walls. And so it's always nice to see them in a different light, and pretty amazing sometimes what you find out from people of what their talents are and what they can do, that you would never know unless you got outside of the environment to do it.
Hmm. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you've kind of been in this on this entrepreneurial journey for quite a while. You said you worked at a couple other places before. Like, what attracted you to this? Because, like, it's not easy and it's not a sure thing by any means, right? It's kind of entrepreneurial ventures are more risky, right, than some other career paths. So, tell me about kind of what attracted you or what tipped the scales toward doing this instead of something else.
Yeah, that's a great question. And one of the things that happened back when I was in school in college, it was there were two classes that I took. There was an executive series and an entrepreneur series. And this is at BYU, and I remember sitting in both, and I took them the same semester just so I could have, be able to see both sides of it at the same time. They happen, of course, at different times, but so I'd go to the executive series, and most everybody would come in very buttoned up, suit and tie, just very corporate looking, and I thought, and that's kind of the world. I mean, I grew up in the '80s really, and it was starting to change a little bit then, but anyway, that was kind of the thing, is the old suit and tie, and that's what you wore. And then almost every entrepreneur that came in, jeans, and it wasn't necessarily the apparel, but just the different kind of the way their personas were. The executives were very buttoned up and very rigid in what they did. The entrepreneurs came in and very excited about things, and just you could see it in their eyes that they had created something, whether it was a product or service, that they were super passionate about and very excited about it. And so that leaned me into my first adventure out of school. Is we had a franchise out in California that we had for about 3 years, and it didn't go well. And you would have thought at that time that it was like, I'm not going the entrepreneur route, because just like you said, the risk and just it was a rough go. But I tell people that was my MBA in small business or entrepreneur. Once you have your own business, you learn really quickly a lot of things that are right and a lot of things that are wrong. And anyway, from that point, actually that was the first company. Right after that one is one of the first time I joined with Kirk, and he had a channel sales and marketing firm, and so we were taking different people's products into the marketplace, whether to be to retailers or putting marketing campaigns together. And that's really from the first venture, even though it wasn't successful to where these other companies were at. I just love the entrepreneurialism. I just love being a part of everything, being involved, and when you're an entrepreneur, you get involved with everything. And so if you don't like having your hands in everything, entrepreneurialism is not where you want to be. If you like having, being able to affect everything that's going on, it's a wonderful place to be. A lot of excitement, a lot of pressure, but and so from that point on, I've been in a couple of software companies. Actually, did join a Fortune 500 company at one point, and the very first day I was there and going through training was, I thought, what in the world did I get myself into? Just it was I had an employee number. I still remember what that number was just because that's how I was identified. It wasn't Dain, it was 9012, and that's just how it went. And I thought, this is not my world. I'm not a fan of this. And so anyway, from that point on, it's just been, I love the small business side of things, and just being able to see things from the beginning, and seeing all the process around it to do something. And again, we're a product company, so I can see it from the ideation stage all the way through the end of life of a product. Or in a service world, it's growing your company from having your own truck to a fleet of trucks to whatever. It's just those are the kind of things you do, and it's
Mm,
just exciting to be a part of that ride.
that's cool. You know, you were talking about product life cycle, I'm curious about your thoughts about kind of the career life cycle, right? I mean, you've been around for a while, right? You're getting into the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
What does that mean for you? What's that look like? Like, what do you think that what you want to what do you think you want to look back at and be proud of?
Yeah, that's I've thought about that. I want to say many times. I've thought about it a few times of what's your legacy in something like this.
Mm,
And really, business is about people, and so it's really how you affected people. And you hope you have more positives than negatives, of course. But to me, I think a lot of it, as we continue on, is how do you continue to build the next generation in this business, for example. Who's the new who are the new managers coming up? Who are the new executives coming up? How are they going to handle the business? Have we trained them well? And I'll give you for an example. Kirk and April are currently serving a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and they're in New Zealand. And their son Shane has taken over as CEO, and it's really funny to see right now because Shane has come into this position the same age I was when we started this business. And to see where he's at and how much more mature he is in how he's running the company than I ever was at that age. I'm still
mm,
trying to mature, but how he's just, and he grew up in the business. I mean, we always kid around about, they started working on the business when they were 6 years old because that's where they've been around. And so, but it's been really fun to see his growth. And that's the kind of thing as you look across the entire organization, have people, one of the things that I'm probably most proud of in the company is hiring somebody to do X, and they've now added Y, Z, W, Cube. I mean, their talent has just exploded, and they've come into the company. Um, I've got people on my team that I just look at from what we hired them to do and to what they're doing now. They're not even close because they've brought out in a talent that we've been able to uh, utilize that they probably didn't even know they had at the time, and being able to draw that out. I think it's a big deal for us of just being able to help people grow in their careers. And I think that's probably one of the best things, from an entrepreneurial or leadership side that you can do is have your team grow. You don't want people to stay stagnant. You want them growing. And when they can do that and you can provide an opportunity for them to do that, it's magic.
what do you think are some of the keys that, either in your leadership or in the culture of BGZ that allows for that unlocking of talent?
I would have to say the easy answer is like, I don't know the answer, so let's go figure it out together. Some of those times, I mean, there's a lot of times where just, after 23 years of being in this business that you just learn how to do things. But in the world that we're living in now, I mean, just even before I got on this call, I was on with one of the members of our team, and with technology the way it is, there's so many things that, 20 years ago, you had to use manual processes to get something done. Well, the world we live in now, there is technology for the most part that can probably do that manual process that allows you, as an employee or as a member of the team, to be able to utilize your talents instead of data entry. Take that talent, utilize it for something that is more innovative and more that can improve a process and make it more efficient, whatever it might be. And being able to see that and really helping people to look at that. And I think that's been one of the big things for us, is just trying to enable that and make that part of our culture, to look into, hey, how do we make this more efficient?
Mm.
Sometimes people get really worried that they're going to lose their job because a machine or whatever comes in and does something faster than they did it or better than they did it. All that does is provides new opportunities. If you look through the history, especially since the Industrial Revolution, bringing cars on, why would anybody ever drive one of these cars when there's horses? And I mean, just all of these kind of things are having, the manufacturing lines, instead of, everybody doing one part, making it more efficient, lean manufacturing, all these different things, all these technologies that are out there that allow people to utilize their talents more than just, some menial process that really they shouldn't be doing, or they could replace. And so allowing for that is a big deal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The next thing is AI, right? With
Yeah,
and it's interesting because I think for a lot of people can trigger fear. You mentioned it earlier, like, is this going to replace my job? Is this going
right,
to be, there's like, whenever we have one of these technology revolutions, there's this fear of the unknown.
right,
What's this going to look like in the future? And none of us know, right?
right.
So, like, are you guys using that? Like, what are you experiencing around AI
Yeah.
in your company?
I love that question, because just this last week, our VP of Finance, Brian Camuso, he and I were talking about AI and just the fear that people have with AI of replacing jobs. And he said something very profound to me. He says, AI has allowed me to learn how to learn so much or not learn how to learn, but to learn so much faster, because it would take a month to pull all the research together in order to find a solution for something. Well, now you can queue up AI, you can prompt it to bring that data in, you can learn it so much faster, and then apply things in a rate that you couldn't do. Like I said, it would take you 30 plus days to figure all this research out and try to find all the references, and you do have to use AI correctly, meaning that you don't want it hallucinating and doing these things where it's like, what in the world are you even saying? But if you prompt it with references and things like that, where it's actually coming from a data source that's trusted, I mean, it's awesome. So yeah, we've leaned. It started probably, and Brian was one of the first ones that helped push us. Is He was working on his MBA, and he brought it up and said, "Hey, we need to really lean into this." And we're all kind of going, "Yeah, whatever." It's a over glorified search engine, and we've learned that it's not. And we're just scratching the surface. That's only on research and product development side. But as you really start looking at how to utilize scripting and other things to create processes that, like I said, are pretty heavy manual processes otherwise, and you can automate them through AI and have it help you do that. It's a great tool. So are we afraid of it? No, no, we're not. I mean, we're a product company, so you still have to manufacture products, but the ideation stages on products and saying, hey, what's the market for this? Being able to identify new markets, what are blue ocean opportunities, all these kind of things that come up, we can research it so much quicker than we used to be able to do. And so now we can make it, it is a decision maker for us, or helps us make decision, because it gives insight that we may not have had previous. Uh,
Hmm.
so yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And so we've gone into it pretty heavily in using AI and just helping with processes and maximizing opportunities.
Yeah, yeah. I can imagine, right, with a smaller, leaner organization, right, the opportunities even greater, right, than a larger organization. The same kind of pressure might not be there.
Yeah. And
Oh,
that's
very
exactly
cool.
that's exactly what I love you bringing that up, is that having a smaller organization, hiring more headcount right now is it's tough to do. Just I could dive into tariffs and all the other fun stuff that's going on in the world that's constantly changing. But when you have the workforce size that we do, how do you maximize each person's efficiency, and what tools can you give them? And AI is playing a huge role in that, and being able to help people to see things and make decisions that would have taken a lot longer to do, and probably more people to research and try to figure it out. In this way, I mean, we can come to the table really quickly and say, okay, what did you find out? What are some resources we can utilize? And it comes together so much quicker than it used to. And so I see it as a huge beneficial tool for us as a company, and anybody that's out there that's really yeah, you can go through and just ideate so fast. It's awesome.
Cool. That's
So
great. This has been great to learn more about your journey and about BGZ and what the future, right? What you're working on now, and what some of the leveraging AI and looking at expanding into different product lines. Um, Tell me, if somebody wanted to learn more about your products or your brands, or want to know where to find them, where would they go to get information about your company and what you guys do?
absolutely. Yeah, so we've got three different websites. We do have our bgzbrands.com, which is our corporate website,
Okay.
and then bodyguardz.com, and that's bodyguards with a Z.com, and that's where you'll find the cases and screen protectors and some other accessories there. And then lander.com, which is again the carry solutions and lighting solutions that we've got. And so, yeah, those two places are the ones you'd see more about the company and what we're doing.
Okay. And then you also kind of go through distribution, is that
We do.
right?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got AT&T and T and Verizon, and we're working with Nordstrom. We've got international distributors as well, and so yeah, we're we've leaned heavily into the wireless world. That's where a lot of what we played, or where we played, and so yeah, the partners that we have there have been phenomenal. Love working with them, and they do a great job for us. And so yeah, products are available there, and of course on our websites. So yeah, lots of places you can find us.
Awesome. Well, cool. Thanks for spending some time with me today, Dane. It feels like we could have gone on a lot longer, but
Absolutely.
we had targeting 45 minutes. So, well, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate learning a little bit about you and about your company.
Well, John, I appreciate you taking time with me. It's been fun getting to know you and talking through. And like I said, it's always fun to talk to entrepreneurs because we all have war stories that we can sit around the table and talk shop, and it's fun to do.
Right on. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, John.
All right.